Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. The group of death has come to its conclusion. What a tournament we are having so far. Gen.G versus Sentinels, the rematch that we were all waiting for. They played earlier in the year, they played later in the year, and yet the result in many occasions tends to stay the same. Sentinels coming into this tournament, considered by many of the teams in the rest of the game, considered to be so overrated. Gen.G considered the favourites for the entire thing. Guess what happened today? An unbelievable set of circumstances. So much to dive into, lots of reaction as well. Very much on Twitter, your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. Before we get into that, a couple of things on the coaching side. Drone still wants to compete, but he's looking at potentially giving coaching services for a little while. There's also talk as well on what's happening in the Brazilian side with Loud. So Pew, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce in the Portuguese here, but anyway, coach of course for Loud. Now, Loud are a funny organisation in many ways because they cycle through coaches like no other team you'll ever find. And he tweets the following out here and he says, I will not continue with the Loud project in 2025. 2024 was a year of a lot of learning and new experiences. Many challenges happened and deviated from the initial idea. We did not achieve the results expected from a team of our level. We also cannot be indifferent to our 4th place at Masters Madrid and 2nd place in the Kick of Americas. I know my ability to lead and organise projects, etc, etc. Would like to thank my former teammates, so I'm open to proposals. So he wants to still be a coach somewhere else. So it sounds like he's been fired effectively, and he kind of has. However, Bruno Povaleri actually says that it kind of goes both ways, that yes, the organisation chose to dismiss him, but actually the coach himself had no interest in even staying. So whether that's just him saying that, it's like, oh, well, I walked before you fired me, or whether this is actually true, because if it is true that the coach of the team was not so happy with the state of the organisation in general and actually was pretty keen to go and try his luck elsewhere with another organisation, maybe that says a thing or two about like Loud's current situation and maybe even just the situation in general of the Brazilian scene in Valorant right now, because it is certainly not the healthiest that it has ever been. Let's dive into the World Championship though, right? Because PaperX yesterday, they took down VCT Sports to advance in the tournament, and well, it's funny how it works, isn't it? There's this illusion of free choice and what bracket you're going to get, but it's always going to be PaperX versus Edward Gaming. It's always going to be how it is. We'll see how that lines up here in a second. But yeah, so VCT Sports played fine in the series. They just weren't good enough, right? It was a close fought affair, 13-11 Sunset, and then 13-6 on the bind in the end. The map one, definitely VCT Sports will feel like they should have won. They lost the final 4 rounds in a row. You know, they had a solid start to their offensive side. They weren't far off getting it to overtime. They didn't. And then when bind came around, that's when PaperX showed their class. And I think for GenG especially, a big bounce back series here really, just because there's been talk about GenG certainly earlier on in the tournament, because when they lost earlier on, people say, oh, GenG came in, Monyet went out, and are they really any better now than they were? You know, there's a debate on that, but certainly this map 2 bind performance here from GenG, 21-13, most impact in the entire lobby, that was pretty telling that, you know, they've maybe in some sense made the right call. So this is what the bracket looks like. We'll talk about Fnatic versus Crew in a second. We'll certainly talk about Group B in a second, to just quickly scroll past it. But down here in the Group D side, this is where you now find, with G2 qualifying the other day, Edward versus PaperX happening tomorrow. And yeah, that is going to be quite the game, because Edward, of course, 2-0 for T-Sports, as now have PaperX. I don't know who's going to win this series, to be honest, right? Given the way that both teams are currently playing, this is going to be an absolute blockbuster, I think. But before we get to that, we've got to talk about what happened in the conclusion of Group B, considered by everyone to be the group of death coming into the tournament, and to be fair, for very good reason indeed. Sentinels are in an interesting spot. They've been in an interesting spot now for some time. They had their phenomenal start to the season, winning Masters Madrid, taking down, of course, Sentinels, or taking down Gen.G, of course, in the finals at that event. And the map I think that they beat them on in the final map to win the tournament was an Icebox, which they played again today. And I will say Gen.G's decision making in terms of the maps they decided to go for was, I thought, rather questionable, but intrigued your perspective in the comments. So Zelsis was, you know, talking just, I don't know what he's even saying here, to be honest, but you know Gen.G, their symbol is the tiger, and I feel like we are the tiger now, and they are the cat, and we're coming for blood. So Zelsis just saying words at this point, but still gives the impression that indeed Sentinels confident in their play, confident that they're in a position to do some damage here in the tournament. And I think that FPX win was so key, because FPX are nice, there's no doubt. They played very competitively against Gen.G, against Heretics over the last couple of tournaments, such as in Shanghai, same again this tournament as well, and Sentinels bopping them out of the tournament as they did kind of goes to show that Sen definitely found something, right? I mean, this is always the thing for these teams. When you've won won the events at the start of the season, when you've been the best team in the world, it's basically impossible to maintain that the entire year. You're always going to have a slump at some point. The meta's going to change. You're going to lose your way a little bit. You're going to lose a bit of confidence. Then things start to spiral. And what is the most challenging thing then is to try and get back to the top, or at least get back to where you were. And most teams fail to do that. They'll be the best. They'll fall off. They won't be able to get back. Sentinels have the coaching staff. They have the players. They have the mentality to make that happen. And, you know, I think people also, it's worth not underestimating how much firepower Sentinels really have. You look at their team, you look at the talent, you look at the aimers on their roster. Like, there's, on paper, it's not dissimilar to Gen.G, really. It's just Gen.G, I think, we're playing better Team VALORANT over the last couple of months. Sentinels couldn't win a pistol. They couldn't even win a series for a long time. And in some sense, they were pretty lucky to even make it to the World Championship at all. But they certainly deserved to make it based on what they did in Madrid. This is what Karen said going into this series. We lost to Sentinels in the finals in Madrid. I kept thinking about regrettable moments in that series, wanting to lift the trophy. I regretted it a lot and was very angry as well. Let's show the fans a great match. But to be honest, in many ways, this weren't even a great match. This was just a bloodbath. Sentinels just, you know, took them for a walk effectively. Zekken was warming up, getting ready to go. Tens was warming up, getting ready to go. And, you know, Zelsis starts off the game with a hot little three-piece here. Lakia had a rough series, to be fair, for him. But, I mean, yeah, this is how things went. I'll just show some of the Lotus highlights. I think from relatively early on, it was quite clear that Sentinels had the upper hand here, certainly on the Lotus. This was their map pick, however. So, you know, early days, of course, in the series. But nonetheless, they took a relatively sizable early lead. And Texture, this is the funny thing with Texture, right, is that we know that he's been very close to getting aces for some time, but unfortunately for him, you know, he's often just picking up 4Ks. So now people are calling him Mr. 4K, and, well, we see another 4K from him right about here. Maybe the ace could have come through, and eventually the ace did come through for Texture, but it was, well, arguably too little, too late, or maybe the mere existence of the ace caused the end of the series. But yeah, this was the three-piece eventually that Zelsis got, spraying down 3 in a crucial round, and then we go to map 2 on the Icebox Crisis. The Sentinels get the job done game 1, but this was the map pick of course, Gen.G. However, though, this was the map that they played in the grand finals back at Madrid, which did not go Gen.G's way. So, you know, a Lotus Icebox map 1, map 2. It was Haven as the decider had it have happened, but some disgusting shots here from Sassy. Like, this guy was absolutely locked in today, and I think that it's great to see from him especially, right? Because for Sentinels, there's been lots of talk about Sassy individually. If Sentinels don't perform at this World Championship, if they bow out of the tournament, what does Sassy do? Is it time for him to go? Is he going to retire? What's the future looking like there? But Sentinels start off with a hot 5-0 start, not even close, dominating the defensive side with loads of retakes. And I genuinely think that Sentinels' game plan for their defense here was just superior to what Gen.G did. They both played with very fast, aggressive, attacking styles on their attacking side. But what really cost them, I think, Gen.G, was the fact that Sentinels' retakes were just better. And this is what we saw with Sentinels when they were at the peak of their powers. Their retakes were unbelievable, right? Certainly this is true on a map like Split. It was true on a map like Icebox as well. And they would be happy to give up a site and play like a full retake setup, and they would win it. Gen.G don't seem so happy for that. They were preferring to fight Sentinels as they were trying to come into the sites when Gen.G got to their defense, and it just wasn't working quite as effectively. But still, Gen.G's attack was effectively catalyzed here by Texture, right? I mean, a 5-0 start for Sentinels, a 2 versus 4. There were moments, I'm not gonna lie, that Sentinels tried to throw away here. Like, this was one example of a round they, like, straight up did throw away. You know, there's no way that you should really be allowing Texture to get what was effectively a 1 versus 4 ace in this moment, getting the final 2 kills as well. We even saw other rounds where Zelsis had to bail them out of a 1v3 they almost threw. So this is the thing for Sentinels, they can play better than this. Like, they were not capitalizing on all their advantages. Like, there is a level above this for Sen, but this reminded me of the Sen that we saw before. I will say Gen.G did seem to be caught off by the moment on some level, right? Like, their team play, their trading just wasn't as efficient as you usually see. And, okay, the fact that they can shoot straight was not making up for the fact that Sentinels were just the stronger outfit today. And there we have it. What a result for Sentinels, but it's a 2-0 over Gen.G in the decider. And going into this tournament, I had Sen and Gen.G making it out of my bracket. I thought Sentinels were going to be able to turn up and deliver a good enough level to get through Heretics and get through FPX, but unfortunately for Gen.G, it was actually them that bowed out of the tournament because Heretics advance and Gen.G go home. Lakia had an all-time disaster class here, by the way. I mean, 9 frags over 2 maps. He was 4 in 15 map 1, and he was 5 in 15 map 2. So there's something to be said on that for sure on that Gen.G side, because when you've had a season they've had, second at an event, winning an event in Shanghai, but then bombing out of the World Championship like this, it's difficult to really get your head around. Someone big was going to have to fall out of that group, right? Because it was the group of death. Some big name team was going to have to go home. But the fact that it was Gen.G, unbelievable scenes. And as Ten says, Icebox deja vu. They get I think it was a 13-6 win again. And Ten says, look, today we actually played like Sentinels. Artist is saying, look, FNS, I made my predictions. And guess what, right? He was right on this occasion that the teams from the Pacific and from China, or the Asians as he referred to them as, bowed out of the tournament. And even John QT says, F your pick'ems, F your expectations, sit there and watch, because Sentinels going into the tournament were voted by the players as the most overrated team at the World Championship. And well, guess what? They've come in, they've got the job done. And what a result to close out the rest of the tournament to really set it up for what's going to be an absolute banger. So just before we close out as well, let's see how things are going here, because we've got Lev Vitality, Edward Paper X as the decider games, but also Fnatic versus Crew. This is currently ongoing, and so far, Crew on their map pick up 8-4. So we'll talk about the result of this one tomorrow. Very interesting developments here, absolutely. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.
The hour has struck. Can he arrive?
Oh,
no!
God, what a peak.
Saucy overwhelms him. With the rest of Sentinels behind him, they push forward, looking to take A. Can Karen hold the line? The flash in his face, he will crumble too. Now just one rifle up for Gen.G. Hopes and dreams of a year. They raced the trophy in Shanghai.
Dare I say it? Dare I say it?
But it would have been so much sweeter to do so in front of a home crowd. But now, Lockie and Munchkin doing their best to keep this thing up, to keep it competitive. They're gonna have to navigate the pit. Every single member crumbling.
What a
Tonight,
win. What a crazy
Soul
win.
Burns red.
Holy time. What a crazy win.
It feels like Sen always take the hard
Feels like we won the event. It feels like we won the event, bro.
And this one was really, really tough. What a fight from Gen.G. But it was Sen besting Gen.G on the maps that they bested them in the final the last time around. Closing it out on Icebox.